clicker is. There we go. That works. Well, good morning, Joy City Church. Hopefully my voice holds out, because sometimes when I talk too long, I just go into a coughing fit because I'm not fully recovered yet. But thankfully, thank the Lord that I am well enough and Lexi is well enough to speak today, because she, as Charisse mentioned, Lexi had pneumonia this week, so we had to take her to the doctor, get x-rays, and put her on antibiotics and all of that. But thankfully, I thought I had pneumonia too from catching it from her, but thankfully I don't have pneumonia. It was just, I guess, like a cough that I just need to get over. So she's over the worst of it, but we're both on the mend, thankfully, and it's great to be up here to speak today. So I have a scenario for all of you. If somebody kidnapped you and said that they were going to chop off one finger on your hand, but they let you choose which finger to chop off, which finger would you choose? I want you to tell the person next to you which finger that you would choose to chop off. I'll give you a couple seconds there. You have a choice. It's like, so you either make the choice or they make the choice. So yeah. It sounds like all of you have a bit of an opinion as to which finger you would choose to chop off. So according to hand surgeons, there is actually a right answer. And then so if you listen all the way to the end of my message, I'm going to tell you what the right answer is. You got to pay attention really closely. A few months ago in the summertime, I spoke about the topic of leadership, in particular, the heart of a leader. And just to recap what I discussed last time, Jesus reminds us that being a servant is at the heart of who we are. Jesus came to be served. Jesus came to serve, not to be served by others. And as leaders, we need to make daily choices about what type of leader that we are going to be. And I talked about two different types of leadership. The first is a responsibility-based leader, where we feel that it is our responsibility to care and to serve the people that we lead. The second is a rewards-based leader, where we just want to be rewarded by the power and the perks of leading. I think it's pretty obvious what type of leader that we want to be, because we can't lead like Jesus until we serve like Jesus. Once we have our hearts and our motives right, then the next step is that we have to put our hands to use to do the right things to lead the way that Jesus led. And the biggest myth in leadership today is that individuals accomplish great things. When we see someone really successful in life, like a parent, an athlete, a business leader whose company is super successful, we always look to that person and think, wow, that individual is great. But that's actually not true. I'm going to say this. Nothing of significance has ever been achieved by an individual acting alone. If you see a parent whose kids are thriving, that parent didn't do everything by themselves to ensure that those kids thrived. If you see an athlete performing at the highest level, like LeBron James or Serena Williams, for example, it's not just that one athlete as an individual. There's always a team or a group of people around them, like their coaches or their teammates, that made them great. If you see a leader performing at the highest levels, that leader didn't have all the skills and gifts to be great by themselves. beneath the surface, what seems like solo acts are always team efforts. So the myth is that individuals accomplish great things, but the truth is that teams accomplish great things. When we look at the life of Jesus, who was the greatest leader of all time, Jesus role modeled this for us. Jesus always chose to work through a team. If there was anybody in history who could do everything on their own, then surely Jesus could have done it because he was God in the flesh. He could have all the gifts and abilities of all of us combined, and he could have totally chosen to do everything by himself. But yet what we see is that Jesus always chose to work through a team. You can't accomplish anything of significance without a team. In Luke chapter 6, it talks about that when Jesus was starting out his ministry and his goal was to transform the world, one of the first things that Jesus did was that he prayed to God all night. And we can read about this in Luke chapter 6, verse 12. One of those days, Jesus went out to a mountainside to pray and spent the night praying to God. I don't know about you, but I personally have never prayed all night long. Have you? I've prayed late into the night and I've woken up in the middle of the night praying, but I haven't prayed all night long. So it must be a really serious thing if Jesus was praying all night long. What was so important that Jesus had to pray all night long? And this is the only place in the New Testament that talks about Jesus praying all night long. Even in the Garden of Gethsemane, before Jesus was crucified, he didn't pray all night long. So what was so special about this particular situation? So we find out later that after Jesus prayed all night long, in the morning, he called together all of his disciples, and he chose the 12 to be in his inner circle of disciples, with his inner core being Peter, James, and John. And so we can read about this further in Luke chapter 6. When morning came, he called his disciples to him and chose 12 of them, whom he also designated apostles: Simon, whom he named Peter, his brother Andrew, James, John, Philip, Bartholomew, Matthew, Thomas, James, son of Alphaeus, Simon, who is called the Zealot, Judas, son of James, and Judas Iscariot, who became a traitor. And so we learn that Jesus prayed all night long because this was one of the most important decisions in his ministry, was to make the decision to choose who his innermost group of disciples were going to be. And that was the decision that needed him to pray all night long. And so from this, we learn 3 leadership lessons from Jesus. The first lesson is that very few things are as important as the team that you surround yourself with. Remember, everyone here is a leader because everyone has influence, so everyone can learn leadership lessons from Jesus. If you are a teenager, we don't have any teenagers here at the moment. If Edler was here, I would say, show me your friends, and I will show you your future. You will be like the people that you surround yourself with. A couple months ago, when I moved to my new job, I inherited a team who was significantly underperforming. And coming in as the new person, there were very high expectations of me from my boss and from my colleagues. And this was a pretty stressful situation for me because being somebody who's goal-oriented and wants to do a good job and wants to get going as quickly as possible and do all the things, I couldn't do what I needed to do because I did not have the right team in place to support me. And so I learned very quickly that in order to be successful, I had to replace my current team with a new and better team. And this was a pretty difficult decision at the time because that meant I had to fire someone on my team. And it was even more difficult for the individual being fired because that person had a family to support that were relying on him. But really, that needed to be done because I had to fire that individual because he was the one that was bringing down the entire team. And after I replaced him with somebody who was better, then I noticed that the performance of the entire team was elevated. And so that was just such an important lesson that every single individual that you have on the team just makes a big difference as to how the team performs as a whole. And so having a great team is so important because it's a myth that we have all the gifts and abilities to lead the way that we want to lead because we're just not that good. In my workplace, I was hired to do a job, but I did not have all the skills and the abilities to do it all by myself. I needed a team to help me accomplish the goals of the business. And we can apply that same concept to our church leadership. In order to be able to effectively lead our church, a leader has to have all of these gifts. Ooh. There we go. So in order to effectively lead our church, a leader has to have all of these gifts and traits. They have to be a vision caster, a theologian, a preacher, a manager, a team builder, a writer, a recruiter. They have to be creative. They have to be a great musician, a counselor, arbitrator. They have to be financially strong. They have to be good at construction, real estate, audiovisual. They have to be really good at graphic design. They have to be good with kids, students, adults, and seniors. They have to be good at food service, marketing, crisis management, human resources, legal, web design, security, and we can go on and on and on. Can you tell me, have you ever met anyone on earth that is good at all of these things? In addition to all of these things, church leaders also have to be great parents to their kids. They have to be a great husband or wife to their spouse. They have to be a good friend. And they have to be really healthy and have a fit body. The person who is good at all of these things simply does not exist. When some of us become leaders, we try to convince ourselves that if we just work hard enough, we go to enough conferences, listen to enough seminars, get the right education, then we are going to be great at all the things that we need to be good at to lead at the level that God wants us to lead. But that is completely wrong. In fact, God's dreams for us will be determined by the strength of the team that we have around us. There is nothing more important after we make the decision to follow Jesus than deciding who are going to be the people that we surround ourselves with. And this is exactly why Joy City Church has structured our church leadership in this way. We have a pastoral team, not just one pastor. And our pastoral team, they're the ones that lead this church. And all of us are gifted in different ways, but we always support each other and we help each other out and we step in when somebody else needs help. For example, Mitra here is a spiritual warrior who prays for those in need, and she is a wonderful host that can make anyone feel welcome. Mohammed has so many years of wisdom from his years serving in ministry, and he has kept this old, leaky building that is, falling apart, standing above our heads all of these years, which is a miracle. Eleanor, who's not here with us today because she's taking care of her baby, she's really gifted in worship and music, and she's just a very genuine and caring person and always just thinking of others. Charisse is great at planning events and organizing people together. So many of our church events would not be possible without her. And Jermaine is a wonderful listener, and he makes people feel heard and understood. And he's always making sure that our church is equipped with the right technology. Would we be able to experience all of these different gifts if we only had one person leading us? So this is why I feel so blessed to have every single one of them to serve alongside in this church, because we would not be where we are today without the heart and the dedication of our entire pastoral team. The second leadership lesson that we learn from Jesus is that when choosing a team, prioritize teamwork over talent every time. When leaders are choosing a team, they always try and go after the most talented person. Of course, we want talented people, but if we had to prioritize between choosing the most talented person or choosing a very team-oriented person, who would you want? I know you would want both because, I want both too, but if we had to prioritize, teamwork trumps talent all day long. And so, what does this have to do with Jesus, you ask? Well, let's go back to Luke chapter 6 that we were just reading. If you look on the page at the list of the 12 disciples that Jesus chose, do you think that Jesus chose the most talented people in the world to be his disciples? Most of the people on this list are ordinary fishermen with no education at all. Peter, Andrew, James, John, and Matthew. He was a tax collector that no one liked. And then there was Simon the Zealot. And so zealots at the time are people who were engaged in guerrilla warfare against the Roman Empire, and they urged other Jewish people to follow along. And so Simon the Zealot was a pretty extreme person. Those are not even close to being the most talented people. In fact, when the rulers, elders, and teachers of the law at the time saw that, they had a reaction, and they saw the people that Jesus chose, and we read about their reaction in Acts chapter 4, verse 13. When they saw the courage of Peter and John and realized that they were unschooled, ordinary men, and so the leaders at the time thought, wow, how do they have so much courage? They're just ordinary, uneducated men. Jesus chose those people because he knew that they would work well as a team, not because they were talented individuals. In 2008, researchers at MIT conducted a study on what teams have the most success. So they took 699 individuals and broke them into 152 different teams. And they gave every team the exact same challenging assignment. But what they did prior to giving them the assignment was that they got all 699 of these people to do an IQ test. And what they were studying was that if they put all the smartest people together in one team, would those teams outperform everyone else? What they found was that when they were looking for the most talented teams, the team with the highest IQs didn't even come close to getting the best results. Some of them, in fact, had the worst results. And so logic seems to tell us that just put the most talented people together and they will outperform everyone else. But the reality is they don't. This study found that people of average talent working on a team, operating as a team, always outperform superstars that struggle with teamwork. Do you see this in your own life, where the most talented people struggle with teamwork? For example, my husband Peter knows the world of sports very well. In basketball, you could have a superstar on a team, but then that team doesn't win. And you ask, why? Well, Michael Jordan said that talent wins games, teamwork wins championships. And we have to ask ourselves this: we could be the most talented individual on the team, but does the team perform better when we are on it? And when we read the rest of Acts chapter 4, verse 13, after the church leaders and elders at the time were astonished at Peter and John being ordinary men, it says that they were astonished and they took note that these men had been with Jesus, which leads us to leadership lesson number 3. Jesus prioritized investing in and empowering his team. He was always trying to develop the people around him. We are not always good at empowering the team around us, but Jesus was always empowering the people around him. In Matthew chapter 10, verse 1, it says that Jesus called his 12 disciples to him and gave them authority. And authority means the power or the right to make decisions. Do you empower the people around you, or do you make it all about you? Do you have to make all the decisions? When we read about Jesus feeding the 5,000, and most of you know this story, but you can read about it in Matthew chapter 14. And there were 5 loaves and 2 fish. Does Jesus say to everyone, "Hey everyone, come to me to get your food"? Actually, Jesus blesses the loaves and the fish, and he puts them into the hands of his disciples. And the miracle happens in the hands of his disciples. The disciples see the multiplication of the food when they go out and they are empowered. This is the way that our leaders in the church are meant to lead, in a way that leaders can raise up and empower people in the church. If we raise up a team and everyone is given the authority and we all go in the same direction together, then we're going to be so much stronger. Have you heard of this phrase, or do you follow this? If you want things done right, you need to do it yourself. Well, us parents do this all the time. Our child should get all of their wisdom and knowledge from me, the number one. But I heard that when they turn to about 13 years old, if we keep speaking to them like that, then they're just going to tune us out. If we don't have a team of people around us to speak to the lives of our kids, then we are doomed. And unfortunately, so many people are opposed to this because they want to be the main person speaking into their children's lives. But the truth is, we can't accomplish anything of significance without a team. And I love this quote by John Maxwell: "One is too small a number to achieve greatness." Now, going back to the question that I asked you all at the beginning, if you were to choose to chop off one finger on your hand, which finger would you choose? How many chose the pointer finger? You've got D, okay. How many chose the middle finger? Nobody? Okay. How many chose the ring finger? Oh, a bunch of you. Wow, okay. And how many chose the pinky? We've got quite a few people that chose the pinky. So there is a correct answer according to hand surgeons. And many people I see chose the pinky. But the pinky is actually incredibly important. The little finger does a disproportionate amount of gripping. So if you lose the pinky, you lose a significant amount of grip strength. And so the right finger to chop off, you would actually choose to lose the pointer finger because the other fingers can compensate for it quite well. So the middle finger is actually pretty similar to the pointer finger, and it can do almost everything that the pointer finger can do. And the last finger that you would want to chop off is your thumb, because without your thumb, you really don't even have a hand. And so actually, if you lost your thumb, hand surgeons would actually try and break off one of your other fingers to replace the thumb. And so what is the finger that represents the leader? It would be the thumb. All of the fingers are different, but the thumb has the one job to work with each of the other fingers so that you could do more together than you ever could just with one finger, just on your own. And so leadership means that we are the thumb. I've come to realize that parenting is a team job, and we can't do it by ourselves. It is so important that we make sure that our kids are plugged into the right community. And what about our spiritual life? We have to be a part of a community that helps us to grow spiritually. We will never be able to grow if we don't surround ourselves with the right people spiritually. And God's word was not designed for us to do it on our own. We need to study it with others, or we will never be able to grow. And so if you are looking for a spiritual community to study the word together, our Wednesday evening Bible studies are the perfect place for you to go and do that. And so if you're interested and you want to get connected, please speak to any of us leaders and we'll make sure to get you connected to that. And sometimes we discover that in order to change our life, maybe we need to change our friends. We have to constantly think about, are the friends that we currently have around us the right people that we should be surrounding ourselves with? And so, in summary, the 3 leadership lessons that we've learned from Jesus. The first is that very few things are as important as the team that we surround ourselves with. The second is that when choosing a team, prioritize teamwork over talent every time. The third is that Jesus prioritized investing in and empowering his team, and so should we. God's dreams for us will be determined by the strength of the team around us. And God's dreams for Joy City Church can only be achieved by the team of people that he puts in place here to lead us. Thank you very much, everyone.